Welcome to Bonehead Weekly. I'm so happy we could be back together this week to fellowship with you all.
Did you really
What
just say
the?
fellowship?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
so I used to work. God damn, this is depressing. I used to
Well,
work
Dad,
with
I've got
people.
a question now. When you say fellowship, are we gonna pass the hat in a minute? Because that's
Well,
every time
okay.
fellowship
So
comes up.
there's somebody who's a high level administrator says it all the time, and I used to work with these folks that got really pissed about them pushing their Christian beliefs on everybody, and I just wanted to put that out there. And it never really, to me, I just thought it was annoying. I never really saw it as that. I don't know. What do you all think?
Yeah, I think
But it is kind of. I mean, it's not about our topic. I just like bringing things up and talking about
work
some of
through
the stuff that happens in our lives.
work through. Oh, by the way, I haven't worked it into an episode recently, but
Yeah.
I was reading about my hero Harlan Ellison the other day, and I have a line. Heard a line he used that I've never heard before, and I've read most of his stuff, so I was shocked. Chad, do you mind if I use you as a guinea pig?
Sure.
Chad, do you know
Wee,
how
wee, 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 wee.
do guinea pigs
All
actually
the
make that sound, or
way
is that normal
home.
pigs?
It's more like really high pitched, and I
Yeah.
can't do high
Guinea pig
pitched.
sounds like,
Wee, wee,
What?
wee, wee,
Let
wee,
me
wee,
do
wee,
this
wee,
Harlan
wee, wee.
Ellison line.
especially when it was muffled in your anal cavity.
Yeah.
I think we all need to work this into our insult repertoire. Chad, do you know how I know that ignorance isn't bliss?
Hell.
Because you're not walking around in a state of constant orgasm.
I would have
Uh,
said euphoria. Actually, I think euphoria works better there than orgasm.
And here's the thing, James.
Well, that's
most
because
people
you never
most of the things,
experienced orgasm.
and
No,
most of the people you
no
would
one
say
with
that
me
to,
has ever experienced an orgasm.
Touche. Touche.
most of the people you probably wouldn't get know what you were saying.
Oh,
About euphoria or orgasm?
Well, the whole thing. All they would hear is orgasm, and they would, yeah, that's where you go.
Do you really make sounds like you should go to a doctor?
It.
I mean, I think you're
All I
actually
can
pooping
say-
a little bit when that
all-
happens.
All I can say is when it hits the fan, oh, it's just even a bigger mess.
Are you talking about when you poop? Because that's clearly not the sound of an orgasm. Plop, plop.
I have tons of
Chad
things that
went
hit the
all
fan.
over the fan again.
The kids?
What?
Constant state of euphoria. I
Oh
hate
my.
to I hate to change a wordsmith's but yes. Anyway, well that's a good insult. I brought please, my side gig. I brought a 7-year-old on stage to tell a joke. This past weekend in Owensboro. By the way, if you're in Owensboro, I know there's several cards I handed out. If you're in Owensboro listening to this, thank you so much for the lovely time. You were a fantastic crowd, smaller crowd than we usually deal with, but also a lovely people. And Chad,
I didn't like any of you.
3 or 4, you weren't there. 3 or 4 blocks of that place is beautiful. It's all at the convention center, but 3 or 4 blocks of that place is
It really is,
You
yeah.
gotta start somewhere.
It is, and it's great. But the little girl, her name is Raylan, and I want to tell her joke. May I tell her joke?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go.
Little goth brat.
She's not goth. Ready?
No.
Why did the chicken cross the road? Well, because.
Pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I laughed my ass off. So I actually had
Raven.
2 voice actors waiting in the wings, and I brought her up on stage. I was like, so at the video, you can hear me go, no, hold them there. Those are the stars behind the door while I get a 7-year-old to tell the joke. I loved it. Yeah. Yeah. And then the jokes across through the rest of the night, because she also went to the cosplay contest and people were making comments. I was like, no, I have no idea. I never met her mother 8 years ago. So we this week lost a couple of people that we would like to take a second and talk about. And this is going to be a little bit of a serious part of the show. James and Chad are going to talk about one. All 3 of us are going to talk about the first one. If you don't mind if I go first with Jeff Burr. Jeff Burr.
Well, you didn't even give us a chance to say yes or no. You just went Jeff Burr. So
Jeff Burr. I'm sorry.
You couldn't even listen check.
I was driving back from Florida and we passed Dalton, Georgia. And I will never, the rest of my life, not go by Dalton, Georgia and not think of Jeff Burr because it's where he's from and it's where he died. And that he lived the last part of his life taking care of his family. Right, gentlemen?
Yep.
I think it was his mom. And I will say this, that and this is not the reason I liked him, but one of our still people think, oh, you get those interviews. So I love getting the interviews. I know Mick Strawn, our friend, doesn't like him unless he's the one being interviewed and being on the show, doesn't like him.
And he's responsible for helping us book a large portion of some of our best episodes,
including Jeff Burr,
who
was a hard to get person because he wasn't necessarily he had a lot of friends, but he wasn't necessarily always doing interviews.
Right.
Did it for Mick. And I can never thank Mick.
He was very humble. He was very humble. He didn't think really, his work was overly important, but to movie fans, especially in the era when he was making those movies were amazing to us. I mean, the 2 Puppet Master movies that he did are my 2 favorite Puppet Master films. And I told him that. I mean, I love his work.
Stepfather Part 2. Leatherface, which actually I don't care for, but the poor bastard was hired at the last end, and I know a lot of people love it.
Well, and he worked with icons, right? He worked with Vincent Price. That's all I have to say.
And we
Whisper
got
to a Scream.
We got the great story of the paintings.
Yep. So, but what I was going to say is, if you actually go and you look at YouTube, please don't, but if you do, or you listen or watch us on YouTube, and you rank us by most of our most popular episodes actually aren't the interviews. The most popular interview we ever did was with Jeff Burr.
Yeah.
And it's the one where we got a couple of people saying, "You got Jeff Burr?" And it's not even that. He was just so damn nice.
He was.
And what happened is we had been invited to hang out and come down, and COVID happened.
Yep.
Same thing with Kurtzman, right?
Yep.
We were in the middle of COVID. We couldn't go down. And we hit it off and we got along great, back and forth on social media. And I just wanted to take a minute to say he never made an Oscar-winning picture or anything that would be an Oscar-winning picture. And to say that all of his movies are fantastic would be an absolute lie. But I met him before we ever got to interview him accidentally at a convention in Cincinnati. I can't remember if it was Indiana. I think it was Indianapolis at Horror Hound. Don't think it was Cincinnati. And he taught me a joke that I'm always going to remember, telling the late Richard Lynch when they were going back and forth about how they should hang out. And he told Richard Lynch said, "I think I'm in La Quinta or La Quinta or however how you say it." And Jeff Burr looking at him and go, "You know what that means in Spanish, right?" "What?" "Near the Denny's."
So I got to tell
for now, 15 years, however how many years later, never see La Quinta or Denny's without thinking of near the Denny's.
So I got to tell a story about this real quick. I went to Vegas a couple of weeks ago. And so I didn't care about the gambling or anything like that, but
you did a lot of it.
No, I didn't I barely did any.
He was there for the brothels, and you know it.
And
so I will say
cocaine.
this. I had 2 top goals of going to Vegas. The main reason was I've bucket list to see Penn and Teller. Unfortunately, Penn and Teller wasn't there that week. They were off. So I went to my second, and that was to see Carrot Top. And by the way, any fucker who says that Carrot Top isn't funny needs to get a sense of humor. Carrot Top is hilarious. But
this isn't another fucking prop act.
But no, in one of the things in the middle of his act, he did that joke.
Near the Denny's?
Yeah, he said he was up there. He mentioned that he was up there. He went to Austin to do Joe Rogan's podcast because him and are good friends, and he talked about he was making jokes about how they were throwing all this money at him and they really weren't, and that he they paid for his hotel, but his hotel was at La Quinta Inn, and he goes, and I don't know if y'all know what La Quinta means. It means near a Denny's. I'm like, fucking Jeff Burr told us that joke. So who stole it from who?
I don't know. They're both now dead. We can't ask either one of them. Carrot Top got killed by a prop.
No, he didn't.
It was a plane. It was a prop plane.
No, it was it the plane? The plane.
But by the way, equally, well, I won't say equally because it's tragic all the way around.
No, it's equal. I mean, it's
no. Well, Jeff Burr was only 60.
Yes,
and just to that's not young. It's over. What's the joke somebody made? It's over the age where people go, oh,
Oh, what a tragedy.
Yeah, like-
by the time you're in your late 50s, maybe 60, people stop saying, what a tragedy.
yeah. It's like, oh, it's early, but it's not surprise. But he was only 60. But the amount of stuff, like he gave us a sequel to Pumpkinhead. He gave us, and it may not be your cup of tea, but I didn't realize that they made Leatherface, aka Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3,
Mm-hmm.
on a budget of $2 million, and it went on to make $6 million. Now, not that's in the $100 million world that we live in, that's not much. But if you make a movie and it triples its budget, that's good,
Yeah.
especially if it's what would effectively have been during that time, what, a subgenre, really?
Well, it's one of those where the movie's the problem with Leatherface is that the trailer was so much better than the actual what happened. And then Nick, and by the way, Mick Strawn has talked about this. Jeff, the original director, got fired at the 11th hour, and they hired Jeff Burr, and that's a thankless position.
Right.
And it's not like you get to change things. And then that movie was chopped or cut up, I guess, but forgive the pun, with most of the gore cut out of it. It's just an unfortunate thing, but Jeff Burr made some good movies. Night of the Scarecrow.
Yeah, that was one of the ones.
That's the one everybody loves.
And that's the one I had a fond memory of because we were talking about that during the episode, and I talked about how much of a cult following it has and how many people love that movie.
He didn't
and he
believe
just
you.
refused. He didn't believe me. He said, "Oh no, you're confusing that with what was it? The Town That Dreaded Sunrise, because it had kind of had the
That or
similar
Scarecrows. There's another one called Scarecrow.
I think, but it was like they had the similar poster. I think it was The Town That Dreaded Sunrise, but I was like, no,
Is
Jeff,
it Sundown? The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
maybe.
I dread
The town that we need to pause this right now. Don't let our ID. We need to write The Town That Dreaded Sunrise. It's a bunch of vampires that live in condominiums.
Oh, did I say Sunrise?
Yes,
Yeah.
you did.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna say Sundown. No, but yeah, he would sit there and refuse to believe that we loved that film and that there's a large group of people who love that film. And I mean, it just goes to he's very humble, and yeah, it's a shame that he's gone. So,
which brings us to the next one.
Yeah,
that we've lost. You want to start?
This one hit us hard. No. This one hit us hard too. Well, me and James. Joe didn't know.
Joe went. Who is that? Why are you bothering me?
Well,
I will call the law on you.
I mean, we lost this year. We've lost two icons in comic books. We just lost George Perez about a month ago, I think now, James.
Yeah.
But today, as we're recording this episode, it was announced that Keith Giffen has left this mortal coil, who was truly just one of these amazing people in comic book history who has a huge mark on the way comic books are written.
Well, and to a point, it's a shame because I just realized what I would have loved to have happen in an ideal world. If we lived in a perfect world, I would love to have a panel with Giffen, the also late great Bernie Wrightson, and Pete Von Schalle, because I didn't know Giffen was also.
I was wrong.
Connected.
George Perez died last year. I thought he just died recently. I'm sorry.
Giffen also did storyboard arts for shows like The Real Ghostbusters and Ed, Ed, and Eddie. He took a break from comics to work in storyboarding for several years. So if you like The Real Ghostbusters, you probably need to give. And what's funny about Giffen as an artist, I don't know if you know this, Chad, or if you were aware that he had controversy for years, and some people think that's why he started going and doing storyboard artist work, because he could mimic anybody else's art.
Oh, really?
And he got in trouble because he got really inspired by this other artist. And he started making his art look exactly like that artist. And the artist himself never complained, but like it was really popular in, let me find the year that it happened, 1986. There was an article in the Comics Journal called The Trouble with Keith Giffen. And they basically looked at him and said that he was starting to imitate other people's art so much because they said he drew like Jim Starlin, who Joe does know, and did interview. And then
have I?
He started, yeah, a couple times, I think.
Bless him. They all go together like voice actors.
And then his art started because he really saw this other guy's art, and he went, oh, that's awesome, and it started to influence his art. And then he was also part of, I believe he was technically one of the founders of Image too, right?
I think so.
Trencher.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Trencher didn't last long because it took a long time to do it, and it was a very unique style of art. But Trencher was his creation there.
Yeah. And Keith Giffen, the three things that I know him most for. The first one is he was responsible for basically leading for creating the Justice League International, which gave us a real large introduction into Booster Gold. Gave Guy Gardner, the one of the better Green Lanterns. Gave us a lot of him in the comic books, but it got a lot of criticism because it focused more on the yucks and not taking itself seriously. It was always a joke. And that's one thing about Keith Giffen's writing is there was always humor. He's also responsible for a large portion of the Lobo comic books, and basically molding Lobo as DC Comics' premier anti-hero. And I am looking forward to seeing, hopefully DC doesn't mess up the movie that they're planning on doing. Side note, I actually do think it's if Jason Momoa gets that role, he is born for that role. He was never born for Aquaman. Y'all can leave comments. I don't care. But also too, just real quick, he did write a great Ambush Bug series, but go ahead, James.
Well, I was going to say he also was involved in a lot of stuff for charity. I don't know if y'all know this. In the 1980s, there was a period where everybody was trying to figure out how to feed the hungry, and DC, I believe it was DC, did Heroes for Hunger. And he was the one behind that. But he worked for Marvel. He worked for DC. He did Drax the Destroyer. If you're a Guardian of the Galaxy fan, he's the one that did the limited series of that for Marvel. He was just all over the place in that way. And it's just one of those things that he worked for so many different companies: Valiant, Marvel, DC, Epic, all these different companies. And if you don't know comics, those may not mean anything to you, but it's really rare to see somebody. And yet I would argue that he never became a well-known name either, which is kind of tragic in its own right. Like if you were a comic fan, you might know it.
Keith Giffen if you knew comic books, but yeah. And we'll wrap up and go to our topic, but I will say this: if you really want a great introduction into Keith Giffen, I really strongly recommend reading a 6-issue limited series that came out in the early 2000s called formerly known as the Justice League, where it's a few members of the Justice League International who are basically kind of limited to being not much of anything, and them forming a superhero for hire company. It's a funny series. It's well written. It has a great story. Just highly recommend checking that out.
And I'll flip this to a Marvel example because he wrote and drew this one. He was a penciler on it as well. And because it's Halloween or nearing Halloween, Marvel Monsters, Where Monsters Dwell, was a one-shot that he did in 2005. And if you like old school monster comics, it was his chance to bring a lot of those back and say, what are they doing now? What would that be? What if monster comics hadn't died away, the supernatural, what would that look like? So that's one I would throw out as well to check out, especially given this time of year.
Okay. So Jeff Burr, Keith Giffen, we'll miss you. Yeah. Thank you for everything you did for us.
Yeah. All right. So not to change the subject, we'll go into something. This is part 16 of what? Bar Room Brawls. And gentlemen, I hope you all have a lot to add to this one.
I can't believe there's some that I'm putting on here, Joe. I don't know how you're not coming up with these on your lists.
Because I'm dead inside.
Yeah, I was
because he stayed all down at the bars fighting and he's punch drunk.
I didn't fight anybody, although you both are very lucky. I was what's the word? I wasn't quite Kevin Shelting it, but at 1 a.m. I didn't understand Saturday, well, I guess it was early Sunday morning, why everyone wasn't answering my text who was down there. I didn't bother texting people who weren't in the half-mile radius, so you're all welcome.
I just put my phone on vibrate, so I wouldn't have answered it till the morning anyway.
Yes, well, you put it on vibrate and place it somewhere sensitive.
Yeah, right between the beehole.
Yeah. Between the beehole?
Yeah, think about it.
No. Not going to one little bit. So, Chad.
Man, I don't know where to start because I'm surprised that you don't have any. Is that what you're telling us?
I'm going to work on it as we go, but I don't
Okay.
have a ton.
All right. Wow.
And I'm
Okay.
sorry. I talked
No,
about the
it's
ones
just-
I like.
No, you didn't. That's what kills me.
But I even mentioned this in the first episode. If you've seen one Western ballroom fight, that's even better. Why didn't we do one on ballroom fighting?
Oh man.
That
Oh,
needs to
limit
be
those
episode
things.
672.
I've got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ghostbusters.
With Slimer?
Yeah, it's in a ballroom.
It is in a ballroom. He's got you there. It
It
is
is,
indeed
But that's a
ballroom.
ballroom. That's not necessarily a bar. That's where they're having the buffet.
No, but you said we should do an episode on ballroom. is
Ballroom
what-
brawls, which is Ghostbusters.
Let's
You
just
dumb
do an
shit.
episode on Ghostbusters again.
No,
I've got an entire
Let-
subgenre
let's-
that I can talk about. I've got two
Everybody
that I bet
first.
neither one of you is going to touch.
Oh, well, I'll go ahead and do mine, and then you do yours.
Go first. Who cares?
I'm going to do this one it's because it's so serious and what happens in it. I got to talk about the ninth configuration.
Oh, yeah,
One of-
that's a good one.
One of William.
No one ever brings that one up. That's not on any list you can find.
I know, and that's what kills me. And so the ninth configuration is William Peter Blatty, who wrote The Exorcist. It's only one. Didn't he only do? Is it how many films does he have in his arsenal?
Exorcist 3
And with the ninth configuration.
Ninth configuration, which is based on Tanker. What's the name of the book?
I can't remember. I'm blanking.
I'm gonna have to look. Well, you keep talking while I look it up.
But no, it's one of those movies that not a lot of people know, and I always encourage
Twinkle
people,
Twinkle Killer Kane. No.
Yeah, that sounds right because the main character's name is Kane.
Yeah.
But
you read Sutter Kane?
Yes, Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane.
For our listeners, if you have not watched the ninth configuration, stop what you're doing, grab a drink, sit down and watch the ninth configuration. I believe you can watch it on the free streaming service Tubi. But it's about this man who's trying to control a mental institution.
Yep.
By letting the patients pick out whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the final scene is a bar fight that is absolutely, and I'm not giving anything away because I don't want to ruin that for you all. It is dark as hell.
Yeah.
It's not like full blown action like all the ones we've talking about. It's subtle, it's slow, and it's very, very intense, and it just keeps building. I mean, we just mentioned, oh my God, guys, we just mentioned the man, Jeff Burr, La Quinta Inn.
Yeah. Richard Lynch.
Richard Lynch is the main baddie in the bar, and
Mhm.
he's evil as hell in this movie. And the interactions between him and Stacy Keach and the other characters in this bar are truly terrifying. So I highly recommend the ninth configuration. I think I've mentioned it once on an episode a long time ago.
We talked about it, yeah.
Yeah, but for
It's technically a very, very, very past the ether sequel to The Exorcist.
yeah. And when I was a kid, like nobody carried this movie.
I didn't see it till 2 years ago, Chad.
Yeah, I saw it in high school from a friend who went to this obscure video store in a bigger city, and that was the only place that carried this movie. So, and I saw it from him, and I loved it. And then I could never find a copy until like 20 years later. James,
I'm going to talk about probably one of the barroom brawls that neither of you is going to talk about.
so this
But
is
again,
you're saying it's a subgenre?
I'm saying subgenre because they don't happen anymore. I think the last one you could make an argument for is relatively recent, but it's very rare now. what happened to Disney barroom fights?
What do you
The
mean?
Great
with
Mouse
Disney?
Detective has one.
Oh, I don't know. It's been a long time since
I
I've
can't
seen
even
that.
remember.
I don't
James,
remember it either.
Tangled has one, but it still
Oh,
stops it.
that's a good
That's the
one.
last one I can think of because, but I mean, the barroom brawl, and now in the Great Mouse Detective, it's it's a misdirected retribution, right? In other words, somebody tries to hit Dawson, Dawson moves because he's drunk, and he hits somebody else, and that's what starts it. It's somebody's going for vengeance, misses the person they're going for, misdirected retribution, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's not what happened to Disney having barroom fights in their movies anymore. Now I watched that Moana and Encanto and enjoyed them. No barroom fights.
I don't know.
But I mean, I was sitting there. I'm like, oh, the Great Mouse Detective has a great because it also has "Let Me Be Good to You" lead-in song. Um, and Chad, why are Disney mice so attractive? That's my point, Chad.
Oh God,
No.
Gadget.
Oh,
Gadget.
Gadget. There's an entire like people talk about Jessica Rabbit, but there's an entire subgenre of Gadget cosplay that is out there, and I'm always impressed.
Is it really?
I mean,
So
you can Google
Rescue
it. It's
Rangers
safe
is one of those
because
things I kind of missed. I mean, I watched some of it, but I was I aged out.
it was not my favorite. I preferred DuckTales, but yeah. I
Well, I
mean,
did
Yeah,
too.
it was DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, and Chippendale Rescue Rangers in that order. But I loved all three, so I can't say.
oh, it was a Disney animated show. Yeah, of course I watched it, but yeah. I mean, and by the way, you can Google Gadget Rescue Rangers cosplay. It's not going to bring up anything horrible. At least it never has for me. I don't do it often, so I'm worried that you all will do it and be like, it's
I'm
nothing.
looking at it right now, and the first thing that came up was Gadget Chippendale Colt, and I don't want to go any further.
I don't know what web service you're using
Did
that
you put
Google
nude
dark,
at the end of it?
Are you
No,
using that
no.
Google dark web?
By the way, Gadget and the Google the cosplay for no, not overly attractive, James.
No. But I'm just saying, there's a ton of them out there, and some of them
Yeah.
are really good. Some of them are.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be like me cosplaying, folks. Let's face it, I can dress up as whatever I want, but I'm not going to do it anyway. It doesn't matter if I wear a Star Trek uniform or I wear, the Red Sonja costume that I wear. It's not. Nobody's going to be impressed.
Is it time for me? Because I'm going to do
Yeah.
a twofer because they're the same scene. Back to where we're talking about Western bar fights. They're the same kind of idea, but they're played slightly different. One's a little bit more, is a little darker, and the other one's a little more for comedic effect. And the two movies are The Bronx Tale and The Kingsman. Okay. In The Kingsman, Colin Firth, the manners maketh the man, right? And he has the drink, and then he doesn't let him out and beats the shit out of him. Okay.
Yeah.
The other one is The Bronx Tale. And oh my goodness, what is the name of that great actor who plays the lead? I didn't look it up because I'm just Chad, you'll be proud of me. I brought this one from memory. And he basically, it's the same guy that plays Fat Tony on The Simpsons.
Chaz Palminteri.
Chaz Palminteri. He locks the door because the bikers come into the neighborhood bar. And this movie,
I knew he was in it, but I don't remember a bar fight with him. It's been forever since I saw a Bronx Tale, but sorry, didn't mean to
and
interrupt
it's
you.
directed by Robert De Niro. And
Yeah.
basically, he comes in. There's these bikers, and he's like, "Okay, give them their drink. Let them be." And they're about to kick him out, and they don't. And then they start causing a problem, and he goes, "I asked you to leave," and he doesn't leave. And then he walks over, has the guy lock the door, and he goes, "Now you can't leave." And it's ominous as shit.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch it in their eyes, and then they proceed to get almost killed.
Wow.
I mean, it's very, very dark. It's the best scene in the movie to me. It's the best scene in the movie. And Chaz Palminteri plays it perfectly. And I love Colin Firth, and I love The Kingsman, especially the first Kingsman. I love that movie. Diminishing Returns, the sequels, but I love the first one. And that one's just played more for fun, but it's the same thought. Do you understand what I mean, gentlemen? It's the same scene of you can't leave now. I guess From Dusk Till Dawn kind of does that as well. Only difference is From Dusk Till Dawn, these other people are starting to fight, and then they can't leave because they're about to get killed or murdered. From dusk till dawn, they're just there to have a good time. But so when you talk about bar fights, I brought them both up because they're polar opposite, because they're on different ends of the spectrum, but they're both the same scene. But if I had to pick one, it's specifically when Chaz Palminteri says, "Now you can't leave."
Oh, it's my turn.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I'm done talking now. You
Sorry.
can go back to listening.
I was trying to get some. While you were talking, I was trying to catch something, and my speakers will not switch over. And I'm sorry if that interrupted the audio.
Huh?
Anyway, Joe, I'm going to steal one that I hope is not on your list, but since you said you didn't have any, this is one of those ones where I was
Well,
like,
actually, I just did too, but yeah.
I was really shocked that this hadn't made your list up until this point.
I'm still sick of all these out for justice ones. Keep
The
going.
6-minute, 50-second bar fight in Hopper.
It's been a long. You mean Hooper?
Hooper. Sorry.
Okay, there we go.
Hooper.
There we go. Let's get that one.
I am not having a
good day. It's been a
day.
long time since I've seen Hooper Hopper.
Oh, really?
It's been a long time. Yeah.
Man, I saw that. I actually watched it this year.
Yeah. How's it hold up?
It's still good. It's crazy as hell, but I still, it's the truth. I mean, it's about a stunt man dealing with his age.
That's actually probably the most biographical movie that he ever made.
Right.
I'm sure it's probably the closest to him.
Yeah. But there is an amazing bar fight. Like I said, that is 6 minutes and 50 seconds long. And do you remember who's in the bar fight, Joe?
Terry
Bradshaw.
Terry Bradshaw, yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, it's all these old stuntmen in this popular dive bar / restaurant. They meet there every week, and they talk about their exploits. It's like just, guys reliving war stories, and then these group of out of towners, of course, come in causing trouble. And
they shouldn't be doing that.
And Burt Reynolds, he's trying to smooth things over, try to make everything nice, but then they just won't have it. So
Burt being Burt.
Absolute chaos. It happens, and the entire bar starts fighting with one another. Shit's getting ripped up. People are getting thrown left and right. Mm-hmm. It's one of those bar fight scenes that just, you're amazed at the spectacle.
Yeah.
And it's you have to watch it to see it. I mean, it's just nonstop insanity for 6 minutes, for almost 7 minutes. And at the end, what's crazy is the end. They have just literally beat the shit out of one another, and then they all just and whoever owned. I feel bad for whoever owned that rest bar, because it is demolished, and all they do is sit there and laugh, and they suddenly just stop. They all laugh at each other, and then they just become all instant friends again.
Yeah.
But that supposedly that's the stuntman life. Go 100 miles an hour, never stop.
I mean, that's how I want to live.
That's not for me. I think maybe good, comfortable pair of shoes, good book to read.
I left them in Florida. Been waiting for them to ship them back.
That's the real bugaboo.
All right. Yeah, they're in that Moorhead bag. The one they gave me, because they told me to leave.
I found out I can't wear sandals.
I can't either.
Is it because of your pussyfoot?
Basically.
Look at my open toe shoes. We sure see them, lady. The George Carlin joke. Sorry.
When I walk, for some reason, my right foot wants to turns to the right, which, by the way, is why I bump into everything, guys. Before
I constantly drunk. Now you're way less interested.
I got my eyes fixed because they told me that's what was causing me to run anything. But
that's because you got kicked by that niece's new mule.
If you fall down a well, they'll go right back.
I'll go right back.
Which fixed everything. But then I was like, great. But now I can't wear. I've never been able to wear sandals because my right foot always comes out of the sandal. And then I finally took the time to watch myself. I'm like, wait, I walk all stupid. So
we've been watching you for years.
I know.
And we didn't need to watch you. Yeah. Yeah. We don't know what to say right now. It seems all kind of awkward.
Here, I'll say, James.
Yeah, there's 4 great barroom fights
And I'm going to do
across
all
the
18 of them.
no, across the show Babylon 5. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm going to do the first one.
How
'Cause
come
it's-
Deep Space Nine never had a? Did they have a bar
They
fight?
did. There's an entire episode that begins with O'Brien and Bashir are in jail at the start of the episode
Oh, yeah.
because there's a fight. They're fighting over labor rights. And Cisco is mad as hell that his officers are in the brig for starting a fight at Quarks. Yeah. Actually, there's a couple of them.
Yeah,
There's a
I
couple
remember
of
that
them.
one.
There's one where the Klingons stir up trouble too. But all of that being
And
said,
Dax kicks the shit out of him, right? Is that what happens in that one?
there's a couple. Actually, there is one that's like that. Yeah.
Sorry, we just went full on nerd.
No,
That's
no.
okay.
Well, that's an example, and that's why I didn't do Deep Space Nine. There's a couple, but actually, Babylon 5 has one of my favorite scenes of. You talked about the bar being destroyed and feeling helpless, and I know you all haven't watched Babylon 5 in detail or anything, but let me set the scene. So Ivanova is the basically second in command, not to be messed with, and she is in a bar drunk because things have been going really, really bad. And this guy hits on her, and she's like, "You need to move along," and she's drunk, and he won't stop. So she proceeds to just basically start to wail on him. Well, then his buddies come along and be like, "You can't do that to him. You're going to hurt him." She basically beats all of them down because they keep saying, "Oh, well," they try to take her one at a time because they're trying to be gentlemen, and she beats them all down. And then finally, the chief of security, which is on the show as Garibaldi, shows up, and somebody's like, "Are you going to arrest her?" And his response before it cuts is, "No, I want to live." And it's one of the greatest scenes where he realizes, A, she's the second in command, but B, she has waylaid all these other people, and he knows it doesn't matter what title he has. He is not going to step into that. He's just going to let it play out. It is a cool bar fight scene, has the hashtag girl power. But also, Ivanova is just one of the most fascinating characters ever because she also has one of my favorite lines on the show where somebody's trying to do intimidation and we're gonna, if you don't do this, we're gonna attack, and she goes, "You're not gonna do that," and they do the entire line of, "Oh no, we assure you we will, and who are you to tell us we won't? I'm Susan Ivanova, daughter of blah blah." That's the name of her entire family, and it finally ends with, "And I'm the last living person you will ever see if you do not stand down." And so she's just a fascinating character that is also really nuanced as the show goes on. But it is one of the greatest bar fight scenes, especially in an early season of a show. So yeah, Babylon 5 has, like I said, 4 of them across the show. All of them are really interesting. One of them is the guy. It cuts away because he goes in the bar and he's looking for information. His character's name is Marcus. I think it's in the 3rd season, and he says, "You all have 10 minutes to tell me what I want to know, or nobody else will be left standing." And then basically it shows 10 minutes later and everybody's down. And he goes, "Now I've got to wait for people to wake up to interrogate them." So it's Babylon 5 was a different show than obviously Star Trek. It was not Star Trek. It was they're much more nuanced, and somebody summed it up best once as it's sort of Lord of the Rings in space.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of juxtaposition. Babylon 5 is shockingly the 5th station. All the other ones have failed. This is the last chance, and then a war breaks out. That's the plot to Babylon 5. The 1st season is all about we're trying to make this work. By the 3rd season, the war is going on, and we're the last shot of peace because it's supposed to be neutral territory. Anyway, so yeah, but it's got a great bar fight scene. So for neutral territory and peace, it has a lot of fights.
Okay, my turn.
Sure. Yeah,
Your
sure.
turn.
Sure. Yeah. I combine those to share.
May I? Well, there's a special rung in hell for those it would ruin good scotch. If I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out speaking the kings.
Yep.
Inglorious bastards. I'm actually shocked now that one of you all said that.
It was actually going to be my 3rd, but I'm glad you did it.
Now, I skipped a few lines in between. I just wanted to put those together. I wasn't very familiar with Michael Fassbender. Actually, Fassbender is yeah, right.
This is what gives him away, right?
This is what gives him away.
Because it would be, yeah.
Yeah, it would be this. And I can't even do that, so I'd be totally screwed. My fingers don't even do that. But yeah, that's what gives him away is the number 3, the way he does 3. And it is not only a really good movie where Tarantino rewrites the ending of World War II, but it introduced me to Michael Fassbender. Even though he's in 300 beforehand, it's a fantastic performance. And then he has that great, if I'm going to go out, huh?
He's in, isn't he in Saving Private Ryan for like a brief moment?
Maybe, but I don't remember him. I don't remember him from 300 really that much as I remember him from that. If I'm going to go out,
Oh God, yeah.
Speaking of Kings, right?
Yeah.
And that barroom fight is mostly talking up until the end. It just builds and builds and builds until there is no one who does. Chad and I think talked about this when we saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in the theater at the end. There is no one who does that quick. I shouldn't say quick, who builds and builds and builds and builds that pressure and then gives you that, for lack of a better word, you're talking about orgasm, or just that let off of the steam that just lets you. No one does that better in cinema today than Tarantino. That release that gives you that release, like, oh my God, I've had an experience. Who does that better? Are either one of you paying attention to me right now? Chad's off in the corner, and James, I can't hear.
I'm muted. Sorry. Yeah, no, I am. You're right. Well, I'll be honest. I was saying about this the other
cathartic
day.
Release. No one and I never go to a movie.
The only other person, and he does not do it as consistently, but I will.
I agree.
Credit.
Steven Spielberg shit. What I meant.
Right.
The only other person that occasionally came close.
I was wrong. He was not in Saving Private Ryan. Sorry, cut you off.
That was helpful.
He was in Band of Brothers. That's what I got.
There you go, James. This is the one time I want to hear what James is going to say.
Early Guy Ritchie in like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. There's a couple scenes that come very close.
But post that, nothing. I mean, Tarantino consistently, that catharsis of at the end, you're going to, and it's not necessarily everybody gets their comeuppance. I mean, of course they do in Once Upon a Hollywood. He just has a really good way of building and then explode. Yeah. I know, truthfully, I know he's a great writer. And is he Ridley Scott? Is he Christopher Nolan? Probably not. But I don't know that the man's ever got credit for the filmmaker he is.
No.
Like the writing out of it as a director he is. And by the way, I don't know that if I spent an hour with Tarantino, I wouldn't try to murder him. However, that's too much of whatever he has and whatever I have. I get it. But I may love him. I have no idea. We may get along great. After I told him that, he'd probably like me because blow up his ego. But it's true. I don't think Tarantino ever he gets credit for writing. His Oscars are all for writing. I don't think he's ever gotten credit for the filmmaker he is. Just as
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree.
All right. Who's next?
I'll go.
I'm not doing too bad considering it was kind of a pull.
I am going to choose one that is not, it's more, I don't know what it is, but I've been doing, kind of more on the, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I've lost my train of thought. The Rock, The Rundown.
Yeah.
The very beginning of the movie where he fights the entire front offensive line of this football team in a club because their quarterback owes this mob guy money, and he won't pay it. And The Rock goes up nicely, and the guy disrespects him, and he comes back and beats the living shit out of everyone. It is a great scene. Honestly, it's still to this day. I'm sure there's plenty of people who would argue with me. I still think it's The Rock's best movie. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson's best movie is.
You think so? I haven't watched it in a long time. It's actually one of the best. Truthfully, it's one of the best Christopher Walken performances.
Yeah. I mean, it's Sean William Scott, Rosario Dawson.
Yeah. We just call them nuts.
Ernie Reyes Jr. I mean, everybody in that movie. Oh my God. I can never remember the actor's name. Spud from Trainspotting. He's great in it.
I forgot he was in it. I haven't seen it in years, Chad. I probably haven't seen it in over 10 years.
I watched it. I showed the girls about 2 months ago, and they loved it. Because they're really into Indiana Jones, and I was out of the top of my head. I'm like, well, if you like Indiana Jones, you'll like this, and they loved it. So
I couldn't get
'Cause
him to
my-
sit through Indiana Jones, but damned if I didn't get him to sit through the 2 Mummy movies.
my girls, they love the Mummy movies, and they loved every single Indiana Jones movie, even Crystal Skull. They even said, "Daddy, why don't you like that movie that much?" There's some things I just can't forgive.
You know, actually, my
And you
kids
can't forgive
enjoyed
your
it.
kids for liking it.
No,
My kids enjoyed because I made them watch them all before we went to see Dial of Destiny, and my kids enjoyed it. But even because we watched them more or less back to back, probably over 2 days. And they were like, my children's review was that was entertaining, but it doesn't fit with the rest.
They liked it better than Temple of Doom, and I'm like, what? What's wrong with my kids? But they have their opinions, and we talked about it, and I'm like, I see your points. They're valid. They're wrong, but they're
well, no, and that's the entire thing, right? There's stuff that I still enjoy that I enjoyed when I was younger, and I still enjoy it today, partially out of nostalgia, partially because it reminds me of where I was when I watched it, who I was with, et cetera, et cetera. And it was with nobody because I lived a lonely childhood. But thanks for bringing it up, Chad. I'll just hang myself.
anytime. But no, the rundown. It is a great bar fight scene. Again, it's poetry in motion the way he kicks those guys' asses. I'm sorry. But it is. I mean, it's one of those action scenes that I hadn't seen something like that in a while. It kind of mirrors a little bit of what became John Wick in those types of fighting styles. So I just really liked the Rundowns bar scene. James, what do you got, man?
I'm gonna absolutely cheat because I wish it would have been in a bar.
You've been cheating on me for years. You cheating.
And by the way, there's still one that I don't know why you all haven't mentioned yet. And if you did mention it, I'm going to apologize, but I'm pretty sure we haven't mentioned it yet. But it'll be my honorable mention.
Well, I want to bring one up, and it's technically not in a bar, but it might as well have been. So I'm going to use it anyway. And oddly enough, I just mentioned Guy Ritchie. Pretty much any scene with the coach from The Gentleman is great, but his fight scene in the diner,
yeah,
that includes the line, "You brush your teeth with like cat urine." It's a great scene. It's Colin Farrell, right?
Yeah, man,
plays coach.
I love that movie.
There's an entire scene where 4 guys, he's in a diner, and these guys start to give him trouble. One of them even pulls a gun on him. And if you watch it, it's a great bar fight scene style thing. But there's something really notable about it. He's beating these guys down, but watch his hands. They're open. He never makes a fist. He smacks them. He's just slapping, like he slaps the gun away from him. He uses condiments to spray in their eyes. And he's just slapping them. He is humiliating them. They have weapons. They pull a knife. They pull a gun, and he's like, "I don't care." And honestly, it's the fight scene that I wish we would have got to see Colin Farrell do as Bullseye in the Daredevil movie. It really is. Watch it
and see him flick
tell
a peanut in an old lady's mouth on an airplane.
Yeah, tell me that doesn't work though. It's again, it's technically in a diner, but it's just too close to a bar fight scene. Not to mention, The Gentleman doesn't get a lot of attention. It's not known as one of Guy Ritchie's best.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I
liked
that film.
The Gentleman.
I've got it on DVD.
It's right up there with Snatch and Lock, Stock.
It's a return to that kind of filmmaking.
Yeah.
I liked Matthew McConaughey in it.
Yeah, I did too.
I know you all prefer Swept Away, but I'm defending The Gentleman here because it felt like a return to me. And by the way, I like Guy Ritchie's films in general. I make jokes about Swept Away. It's the one I haven't seen. But the point being, I've seen the other ones, and I haven't
seen them all.
I've never seen a Guy Ritchie film that I walked away from and went, "Oh, I regret watching that at all."
The Gentleman's the best movie he's seen.
James, have you seen King Arthur?
It's pretty bad.
Oh man, that's
Well, here's
to me, it's almost unwatchable.
I agree with Joe.
I enjoy King Arthur the same way I enjoy Who
League of
directed
Extraordinary Gentlemen.
No, who directed Robin Hood with Russell
Ridley
Crowe?
Scott.
Ridley Scott. The same way I enjoy as an idea of what could have been there. I'll go along for the ride. And don't get me wrong, I actually enjoyed Ridley Scott's Robin Hood. I wondered what it could have been.
This is
And you all know the
completely
backstory on that. But anyway,
Yeah.
this,
Well, it
this
was
is
originally
completely
about the sheriff.
this
Yeah.
is completely off topic of anything we're discussing. But since he just mentioned it, James, thoughts on the Elton John guys Robin Hood?
oh, is that the one with
Jamie Foxx and the
okay,
Morgan
this is a
Freeman role.
true story. My son, much like me, because I loved Robin Hood, the Robin Hood mythos as a kid. Like I have, my mom still has.
Taron Egerton. Sorry,
Yeah,
guys.
I have about 15 different versions of the book from when I was a kid. I loved the Robin Hood myth. My son, it turns out, inherited that, and I didn't know it, but he saw that. Now, Chad, keep in mind, he saw it, and literally we were checking out at Meijer or Walmart, and they had it on an end cap. And he goes, "Dad, it's a Robin Hood movie." And I literally just went, "How much is it?" And he goes, "It's Blu-ray and it's $5." I'm like, "Let's get it." And we watched it. Now, did it redefine the genre of Robin Hood? No.
I think I may have seen parts of it.
It's terrible.
I don't know if
I can't
it's as
remember
terrible
now.
as some other versions are.
Oh no. It's bad.
I kind of enjoyed what they tried to do, and I say tried to do with Jamie Foxx's character.
They tried to turn him into a superhero and make it an expanded universe, and
It's the Matrix. It's the
terrible.
Matrix with Robin Hood.
Oh,
It wants
God.
to be. I'm sorry. It wants to be the Matrix with Robin Hood.
Oh, it
But
was
you know,
just-
and we've talked about how we're all tired of Robin Hood, right?
Right.
yeah, that's one of those ones I wish would go away. Him and Peter Pan.
But I was saying the other day, and I know I don't want us to ever lose a future guest because of what I say, because there's parts of it that I did enjoy, just like there's parts of that Robin Hood I enjoyed. I enjoyed watching with my son. I enjoyed that he enjoyed it.
I get that.
Yeah.
But
I get that.
I get that too. If my kids would have watched it and liked it, I would have been right in there with it. But I watched it by myself, and I was like, man, this is
Unfortunately, 60 or 70% of what we watch, we both roll our eyes on the same shit. So
Well, no,
I'm assuming you all experience the same thing. I
Yes.
don't know, but
Yeah.
it's like
No,
he and I have both never finished. Oh hell, I don't know that we both never finished The Little Mermaid, the new one.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Citizen K, and he rolls his eyes. He goes, "This movie, it's just."
But, well, he called it pretentious. he said that what a slay. This is fucking armchair psychology. And I was like, "Where did you hear that, you little shit?" From you. I got it from you. And then we hugged.
And I've got an honorable mention too if Chad doesn't do it later. But anyway,
how many marijuana cigarettes did that one PSA save people from smoking? Thank God that commercial exists.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
Because you said, I learned it from you.
Oh, I was actually, that's funny you were doing that. You're quoting that, and I got it from A Cabin in the Woods. When they're fake arguing, she goes, "I learned it from you." And she runs out. I just think it's a great line. I never connected that that's where she stole it from, Jeff. Yeah. So it's funny. Just where Jeff Burr probably stole it all from Carrot Top. And we're back. So thank you so much for tuning in this week to Bonehead Weekly. Yes, James.
So, you got one more there, Joe?
The only last one I want to say is Back to the Future 3, the bar fight. And because there is either a fight in Back to the Future 2, it's in the Pepsi pub.
Yeah.
And in the back, I just think the bar fight and kind of encapsulate those in the Westerns and all the other ones. And with the spittoon on top of his head, it's fun. Is it the best one? No, that one's more of me just pulling something out and referring to, because there's a lot of ones we haven't talked about. Like I think we're going to get crap for I know we mentioned Roadhouse, but we really didn't talk about Roadhouse.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about Terminator 2.
Yeah, but honestly, in terms of Roadhouse is good for what it is, but the bar fight scenes are kind of lame in my opinion compared to all the ones that were on my list.
And the last one I would say we never really talked about, and I don't even remember the scene, but it's on a ton of lists, and I'll drop it at that. And I'm not going to say it. I don't have any honorable mentions. I
really don't think you I really don't think you mentioned the one that I'm shocked at either
I
one
would
of
say
you
I've got
didn't
an
bring up.
honorable
Is
mention that if
Goodwill
you,
Hunting is on a lot of lists.
Bleh.
Yeah, I don't see it as an actual barroom brawl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so what's your honorable mention, Chad? I want to see if you take mine.
Okay, so and you all may go, Chad. We talked about this in the first episode, but I really don't. I do want to quickly mention one, Dukes of Hazzard. Love
Yeah,
that
it's
bar
fun.
fight scene at Dukes of Hazzard.
Actually,
still
and
say
the
the
TV
movie's
show
fun.
had a ton of them. The boards, yeah.
Boar's Nest, yeah.
Yeah, the movie's fun. Donnie Yen in The Iceman. I love Donnie Yen. I watch it I like a lot of his movies, but his the bar fight scene in The Iceman is
Either one can't see for shit.
yeah.
Okay.
the force is with me.
I like him in John Wick 4.
Yeah. But
Still Wiccan.
I didn't realize
That
he
would've been
played.
the
He
name.
was blind in Rebel, Rogue One, and he's blind in that movie too.
Because he's blind.
Yeah, not in real life.
He's not?
No,
Shit. I don't tell the two movies I know
Well,
him from. He's blind as
taking
fuck in
job-
both of them.
he played Ip Man like in a bunch of.
I never seen Ip
movie.
Man.
What were those movies called, Chad?
Oh my
Where he
god,
plays Ip Man. What were those films
What were
called?
those movies called?
Donnie Yen, man, he's
Donnie
he's-
Yen Man.
No, Donnie Yen has a lot of movies under his belt. You should check out some of his work. It's great. But no,
Every time I do, he's looking over there. I don't know where he's looking.
But here's the one that I really don't think
You
either
can't
one of
fight
you
John
mentioned,
Wick that way.
and I'm stunned. And I'm sorry if we didn't mention it in episode 1.
What?
Did either of you mention Blazing Saddles?
No, but I never think of it as like a barroom fight. To me, it's more of, and you're absolutely right. It kind of starts there. Hold on.
I
There's
worked for
the
Mel
other bar
Brooks.
fight where Mongo.
Yep.
And I mean, there's
Mongo
all
but
kind-
Pawn and Game of Life.
But that just, he kind of walks in, telegram from Mongo.
Yeah, but he's
still,
beating
the-
up
the-
other people,
and
right?
the
Mongo's
final
been beating
scene
up-
is in a bar. I mean,
It's all over the studio.
It's
Goes
all over the
way
studio.
it goes all the way to the. Yeah, I don't know. I just never think of that one as a. If you'd have talked to me about the greatest fight scenes, I would have thrown it in there. But I
Yeah.
don't think of it that way.
But yeah, when I just kept waiting for you all to say, one of you to go Blazing Saddles. I'm like,
If
Why
you
aren't
could
they
talk,
doing-
especially if you would have said the best fight scenes that break the fourth wall, that's number one.
What? Yeah. There's no.
but no,
I'm-
it just I had it on my list from day one, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it because Joe or James is going to take it, so I'll just do these other ones. And then here we are, part 3, the final episode. I'm like, they're still not mentioning Blazing Saddles.
I'm amazed you haven't mentioned one that I was going to mention because I literally thought, no, Chad's going to take this
Maybe
one.
I'm amazed at the way you love
So
me. Home.
before you say this final pick, I do want to say, what one of the things that inspired me for this topic and why it just kept going in my head and I kept coming up with more and more on this list and why I thought we got 3 parts out of this is there's one movie
We're
that
sorry,
I am-
audience.
there's one movie about with a bar fight scene, and it involves a really amazing shot of somebody getting the bottle broken over their head, and I can see it in my mind, but the faces are blurred and everything else about it is gone. And I'm like, I want to know what movie that is because I'm still pissed that I couldn't think of it for the 3 episodes.
I don't know. That doesn't. Unfortunately, you're not narrowing it down.
I know I'm not, and that's all I have is just one scene of somebody getting a bottle broken over their head and maybe some kind of blue tint.
Which could be thousands of movies.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it's not a Michael Mann film. Fuck him and his blue tint. James,
Michael
Joe.
Mann is outside in the woods in Oregon right now in a blue tent going, I don't know what I did to Chad Jennings. I pissed off the rest of Hollywood, but Chad wasn't in Hollywood. He's as far as fuck from Hollywood as he could be. Fuck Chad Jennings.
James,
I'll
what is,
sit here in my blue tent and fuck Chad Jennings.
what is it? What's the one that you?
The couple that I will mention very briefly is one of the best bar fight between 2 Girl Scouts occurs in Airplane.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
airplane bar fight, I would make an argument is pretty cool. That's the funniest. That may be the funniest bar fight.
Yeah.
That now I'm upset with myself that I didn't think of that one.
But actually one of my all-time favorite bar fights, and I again, Chad, I'm amazed you didn't name it because I thought you would, and if you did and I've just forgotten, forgive me. Speaking of a scene where a bottle is broken over somebody's head, It's one of my favorite lines of all time because our hero breaks a bottle over someone's head and the person just turns around and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was just looking for the rest of this bottle. Oh, some of it's over there. Some of it's over there." While the dulcet tones of the Pina Colada song is playing because he meant to play Street Fighting Man. I'm talking about, of course, Dirty Work with Norm Macdonald.
I did not bring it up, and I forgot all about it.
Which
I
has
feel like
some
an
of
asshole.
my favorite lines for a bar fight ever. But when Norm Macdonald breaks that bottle over the guy's head, and it doesn't knock him out, he just turns around and he's getting ready to hit him. And he goes, "I'm looking for the rest of this bottle." Some of it, some of it's over there. And Chris Farley literally goes to put something on the jukebox that would be appropriate for fighting, and he hits the wrong button and starts to play the Pina Colada song.
He goes, "Disc 7."
Yeah. It's one of my favorite bar fight scenes in a comedy ever because nothing goes right. And if you've never seen Dirty Work, it was directed by Bob Saget. Norm Macdonald, we lost both of them. Go watch the movie. But it also has a great scene because it turns out this bar fight doesn't go well for our heroes. And if you know anything about the film, sorry, Chad.
I just want to say, we lost Norm, we lost Saget, we lost Rickles, and Artie Lang is still living.
And Chris Farley's in this movie.
And Chris Farley's gone too, and Artie
Yeah.
Lang still survives.
Well, Chris
Yeah,
Farley
and
did a
thank
lot of
God.
drugs too. Let's not just.
No, but I'm just saying, no, but
Well, I know, but I don't think he did it at Artie Lang's level.
Are you saying he's not as good?
Well, not now. He can't do anything. But anyway, my favorite part about that, the reason this bar fight is different than the other ones, usually our heroes win the bar fights. They lose. These fraternity guys beat the living daylights out of him. And then the reason, so basically the plot to the movie is Norm Macdonald and Artie Lang start this revenge company where they'll get revenge on people who've wronged you. And one of the ways that they get revenge on the fraternity is they call the fraternity and goes, "Hey, we're the brothers of whatever, some other fraternity. And be like, we just want to let you know a bunch of people are going around pretending to be cops. Don't let them into your house. They're not really cops." And "Oh, thanks for letting us know, man." And then literally he just hangs up the phone and dials. And his next words are, "Hello, real cops? We'd like to report a disturbance." And he sends the real police. And of course, they don't think they're the real police. And the police beat the living daylights out of him. It's not the best comedy ever, but I never not enjoy it just for Norm Macdonald's deadpan responses. Like there's a point where he's his love interest is standing there and he goes, "Ah, I got stuff to do too. I got to go lift weights." And then he stops and he actually mouths, "Lift weights?" because it's the stupidest line he could have had. But it's one of the best bar fights. If you've not seen the bar fight scene, literally you can just go to YouTube, search Dirty Work bar fight. You'll get to see Chris Farley and Norm and the fight in all its glory. It's a great scene.
All right.
There's others, but I think 3 episodes we've covered quite a bit.
Yeah, we've
if
covered
we left
enough.
your favorite one off, let us know in the comments and start your own podcast.
Yeah. Why don't you just go have a big bowl of suck it?
Oh,
Yes.
I need to add one more. I almost forgot because it's one of the only times it occurs in the franchise. And I mentioned Indiana Jones in one of our previous episodes. I'll lose my geek card. And I mentioned Star Trek. I'll lose my geek card though because probably my other favorite franchise of all time is James Bond, and we get one of the best bar fight scenes in James Bond in one of the most underrated Bonds. Timothy Dalton, License to Kill, has a great.
I agree with that.
Yep.
It's
Okay.
and usually it's very Bond is neat and tidy. It is not a neat and tidy bar fight.
And
Check
a
it out.
dude gets ate by a shark.
I want to do I want to do Dave Chappelle doing Samuel Jackson. The shark ate me.
He ate half of him. He ate half of him.
And with that, we bid you
Adieu.
Fondue.
fondue. This has been Bonehead.
Adieu.